get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. There's rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spare for a night, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Maybe.
All right, and we're double cam. All right, welcome to Inside the Numbers, folks, with the People's Pundit, and I am your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. So there were really good suggestions on locals about what to ask in California. So we are going to do a poll on the recall in California, which is going to be fun. There seems to be a completely different universe. Again, I saw the Pew Research poll. I just don't know how a week later you can have Gavin Newsom that high when so many others, up to, I think, me, myself, me, Emerson, and one other, a local California poll, had him in the 40s. I just don't know how you have these multiple universes. So I'm very curious to see what we have again in September. In this month. Maybe there was a bump. Maybe he is getting some kind of a bump. Maybe a week later he's getting a bump. I seriously doubt it. But we'll keep an open mind and we'll move forward. On the question, one of the best questions that was asked. All right. And yeah, we'll get into all the news today. Just, I want to get this out. One of the best questions or suggestions, because we had already been kicking around something like this. Somebody had said, do you see yourself in California in the next 5 years? All right. And for those who don't know, California is experiencing out-migration, right? There are more people moving, okay, let me put it this way, more accurately. There are more U.S. citizens leaving the state of California than there are U.S. citizens who live in other states moving to the state of California. We've been over this graphs before, particularly over the last 10 years or so. California's trend is net negative. They're losing working class labor capital, gaining more professional class, which liberals may say, well, good, we'd rather have them anyway. Yeah, but you can't run an economy like that. So eventually there'll be nobody to serve you. There'll be nobody to build your house. There'll be no one to wash your butt for you, So economies cannot be strong like that, all right? And they're getting low-skilled labor from other countries. But there are there's skilled labor and then there's low skilled labor. And the numbers are damning for California. All right. They will, if this keeps up, they'll have the same problem that Guatemala, Mexico is afraid of, which is why the Mexican president slammed Joe Biden. You cannot have an economy, a strong economy, whether it's a state, a country, whatever, if you do not have skilled labor. I don't mean uneducated. I mean people who know how to do things that you will never know how to do. You will never learn in your college. Life skills, tech skills, trade skills. All right. So with that, we wanted to know, because when we poll Texas, Nevada, Arizona, and actually Texas and Arizona are more pertinent here because we didn't poll Nevada a whole lot last cycle, especially during the end. The bottom line is, when we ask people, where did you move from? Have you lived in Texas for 2 or 3 generations? No, whatever it may be. Well, then where did you come from? What state did you come from? And the number one state is always California. All right, so with that in mind, we want to know. So this is how we're phrasing this question. We're going to ask a couple little parts of it, all right? All right, where are we? All right, here we go. Prompt. California is experiencing net negative migration, meaning the number of people moving out of California to another state exceeds the number moving from another state to California. Texas, Arizona, Nevada, Washington, and Oregon are the top destination states for this migration. We would like to know whether you are considering or have ever considered leaving the state of California. Please choose which answer best suits you. This is how and we're going to add a 1 or 2 more that are rough, because we want to know why they're leaving too. We want to specifically pin down why. All right, so the first option is, yes, I am considering leaving the state. Yes, I would if I could, but I can't due to job, finances, family, or another reason. All right. No, I have not considered leaving California. All right. So I hope that one suits you. We're kicking it around. A bunch of you, I think starting with Todd, a bunch of you wanted to see that. And that was a great suggestion. We had already thought about that, Todd, and we wanted to do it. And we were just kind of figuring out which is the best way to do it. His suggestion, for those who want to know, do you see yourself in California in the next 5 years? Yes or no? Or 10 years? Yes or no? And what we were deliberating over here is for those who say that, or either choose the first or second option, which is, yes, I am considering leaving the state, or yes, I would if I could, but I can't due to jobs, finance, family, or another reason. We are going to probably ask a follow-up if you choose one of the first 2 options, which is along the lines of what Todd suggested. Because what if they said, I would if I could, but I can't due to jobs, finances, family, or another reason? So they have a goal. They've set a goal to leave California. We'd like to know how many of those people there are, what they look like, who they are, right? We want to identify them. We want to target them. We want to identify them. All right. And then also, of course, we're going to be doing most important issues. On the recall effort itself, I have to explain this to you guys, all right? Because this is important. And by the way, we're going to get in about signature verification. The gaslighting yesterday on this is incredible. And it's not just been yesterday. It's been since November. It's incredible. They are full of crap. They meeting the media, and they're not even media, all right? Let's get back to the Molly suggestion. The activists, the political activists pretending to be journalists, all right? They're full of crap. And so were Democrats in California and everywhere else who have continued to make this argument on signature verification. It all of a sudden matters again when a Democrat needs to use it. Strict, rigorous signature verification all of a sudden matters. Couple of months ago, 0.14% was a perfectly acceptable rejection rate, even though historically we know that is total nonsense. So first we will ask, and I'll circle back to that in a second. First we'll ask, if the recall election were held today, would you vote? Well, first the prompt is, there is currently an effort to recall Governor Gavin Newsom. A majority yes vote would recall and remove him from office. If the recall election were held today, would you vote yes to remove Gavin Newsom from office, or no to keep him in office? And then obviously the options are yes to remove him, no to keep him. All right. This is something I think people don't understand. And Democrats are having a canary over this right now. And there's seriously a potential for a significant fracture here. There's a potential for significant fracture among Democrats because of how this will go. All right. Regardless of the recall outcome, voters will also be asked who should succeed Governor Newsom if he is recalled. Folks, on the same ballot, Gavin Newsom, some other Democratic candidate, a Republican candidate, or undecided. And there's a reason why we did it this way. All right. I think it's possible Republicans could get a candidate that will scare the rest of the current field away. So it is, and this is, Democrats are terrified of this scenario. All right. Look, Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry. I'm sure you're a wonderful man, but you're a joke to them, and rightfully so. And that comes with the next question here. You're a politician. It's just not going to cut it. The state is too blue. People need to get their heads out of their butts. Doesn't matter how successful of a mayor you were, of what city in California. You will be branded a Republican, a normal Republican who, as we said the other day, sleeps with their suit on, and you will lose. Even if there are 2 or 3 Democratic names on the ballot, you will lose. All right, so Gavin Newsom could still very well be on the ballot. Of course, yes, and he will. Of course, that's actually more likely than any other scenario. You have the Nancy Pelosi argument, all right, which is just keep Gavin on the ballot. Don't run against Gavin. She's telling other people.
She's afraid of a split.
And yes, and she's afraid of a split. And Gavin Newsom is trying to make the case that it's much easier just to convey the message of no and vote me than it is to get all bogged up. Well, you do have alternatives. You know, in the event Gavin is recalled, you do have alternatives. Now, there are others who would disagree with that. And most notably, let me take a look at my... All right, Willie Brown. Our good friend Willie. Kamala's good friend Willie. All right? Willie. Let's call it, as the LA Times did, the Willie Brown argument, who's the former mayor of San Francisco and the former Speaker of the California Assembly. He told Politica that the Democratic Party absolutely must offer voters an alternative to the Republican candidates who will be on the ballot, and that person cannot be named Gavin Newsom. Willie Brown is a very politically smart old man. All right. This is what he said. Quote, "You can't take the risk of Democrats losing the governorship. You've got to literally protect it." What Willie sees here, I think, is a repeat of 03. The polls were wrong in 03. Contrary to what, in this, because the LA Times couldn't even do basic research before writing some of the stuff in this article that they wrote, which is incorrect. Arnold Schwarzenegger basically became governor because he barely slipped by with less than 50% of the vote. Tom McClintock got like 19% of the vote. Schwarzenegger got in the high 40s. The Democrats just got bludgeoned because Gray Davis couldn't keep the lights on. California is much more blue than it was back then, but it was still blue. It was a devastating defeat. There were 2 Republican options and 1 Democratic option. So, I mean, really, what's this person's name, by the way, real quick? Nicholas Goldberg. Nick, do some basic research before you write stuff like that, man. You could have wikied that crap. It's not exactly like you got to go into some archive at the Secretary of State's office. Gray Davis poisoned the Democratic Party that year. The polls were split. Some polls did show that Democrats were going to lose the runoff. Some polls did not. Actually, media polls didn't favor Schwarzenegger pulling this off. Voters were evenly split. In the end, that's not really what happened. Democrats went down in a blaze of glory. And I think Willie Brown is seen like the little bit of a potential repeat of history here, even though the state is much bluer. However, there is no doubt both have risks. If you take Willie Brown's suggestion and you put another Democrat on there, then it is very possible with the right candidate, Republicans can win this thing. Absolutely. And the bluest state in the union, or one of, I think Hawaii is probably the bluest state in the union if I really had to bend my arm or twist my arm over it, will have a Republican governor. One of the most bluest states in the union will have a Republican governor. So that's why we phrase the question like that. Gavin Newsom, some other Democratic candidate, a Republican candidate, and undecided. If a big name Republican who is not really viewed as a politician, but is politically competent, is viable, is a viable candidate. If someone like that gets in the race, they will scare the rest out. If they do not get in that race, we will have a hodgepodge, a few Republicans probably. That's what will end up being the case. Maybe not, but it doesn't matter. And they'll lose. Especially if it's just a politician. Because that won't, and I'm telling you, I know this for a fact, that won't scare Democrats. And you don't have to take my word for it. I mean, there's public media reports about this. They are not afraid of Republican politicians. All right? And they are afraid of a few people. Really, two in particular. All right, so anyway, here's another big important question we're going to ask. Supporters of the recall argue they are holding Governor Gavin Newsom accountable for mismanaging the state from homelessness to the pandemic. And by the way, last time we checked, homelessness was the number one issue in the state of California, which was pretty interesting. It was homelessness.
Well, because look at the streets.
I thought it'd be healthcare. I know, but it's still a liberal state.
Friend told you about walking in the streets,
and that was a liberal area.
Fecal matter on your shoes.
That was a liberal area too. But I don't know. This is why you can never assume what the American people are going to tell you in public polls. Mm-hmm. But I thought it was it's a blue state. I thought it would be healthcare, coronavirus kind of thing. It was not. It was homelessness, and then COVID was just a little bit ahead of jobs. Mm-hmm. And that's it. Opponents branded their strategy, "Stop the Republican steal," unquote. I mean, the Republican recall. The idea is to paint the recall as partisan. And you know why I just made that note? Because Democrats just stole your slogan. And instead of steal, they replaced it with recall. Anybody notice that? They took that phrase. They took Trump's phrase. And instead of steal, it's recall. And the parties, of course, flip. But of course. All right. So stop the Republican recall. The idea is to paint the recall as partisan and rely on the large advantage Democrats hold in voter registration statewide. Do you believe the recall effort is strictly partisan and unjustified, or a legitimate and justified effort to hold Gavin Newsom accountable for mismanaging the state? Strictly partisan, legitimate accountability, undecided. And there's a reason. I want to know, do people really believe that? Or do they believe that it's at least a good faith effort that the guy has had problems? Because it is such a blue state, I expect strictly partisan still to win this thing. The question is by how much? Mm-hmm. And does it have a majority? Right? Because if it doesn't, that's a problem for Democrats, especially under the right scenario. That's a major problem because that tells me even Democratic and Democratic-leaning voters are acknowledging that Gavin Newsom has botched the state, his handling of the state. We're also going to ask a couple environmental things. There's been a lot of problems with wildfires, forest fires, and that is because environmental groups are so radical they refuse to allow the cleaning of the way that other countries clear out forestry and make sure that it's not at risk for these forest fires. But radical environmentalists have won in California. They will not allow them to do that and prepare for it. So that is why we have fires. I don't think a lot of people understand that. So what we want to ask is, which is more important?
Weeding the forest or burning?
Preventing the forest fires or the concerns of the environmental groups? Which is more important? And because your problem's never going to get any better. It has nothing to do with global warming. It has everything to do with how you maintain your forest areas, your forestry.
Somebody just said, I lived in California the last 10 years and was terrorized by fires.
That's horrible. And honestly, I am so sorry to hear that. That is terrible. But
that's what happens when you care
I know
about
somebody
the
who
cause
barely
versus...
escaped with her life.
Mm-hmm.
Barely escaped with her life. I mean, she really almost got consumed. And she lost everything.
Well, because we care more about
she lost everything.
Aesthetics of it, not the actuality of it.
How is that happening?
Yeah,
that's annoying.
I see it.
All right. So in any event, real quick, 11:22. So we're gonna do that, and we're going to do that this weekend. We will very hopefully wrap up the late March, early April national poll. Rasmussen has Biden down this month a little bit. The rest of again, I don't know what to call these. The political activist media, they have him, screaming as high as ever. Look, I do want to point something out. AP, because we're asking a question too about automatic voter registration. I don't see it at 60% support for automatic, but we asked the question correctly. Because it's important for Americans to understand. If you go to automatic voter registration, there will be illegals on the voter rolls. There will be, well, there already are, but there'll be more. And there will be young people who are not even eligible to vote on the voter rolls. And we are finding something very different. Anyway, the AP found 60% support the way they asked the question, which I believe, and I would argue, was wholly dishonest. It was dishonest. You're not giving Americans the full truth. And you're wording the question to make it sound like it's some civil rights thing. That's a load of crap. Photo ID comes in at 72%. Yet the title to their article starts with U.S. majorities support automatic voter registration and photo ID requirement. Look, for those who are not in this business, and I've been an editor for, if you count what I did before PPD, in some capacity in data journalism. I have been an editor in some capacity when it comes to data journalism for a decade. Over a decade almost. No, about a decade. It, of course, is an editorial decision in what order you word titles, and I'm going to tell you why. If you want to be fair, you have to make sure that the entire title that is displayed in a search engine conveys the whole story accurately. There are only so many characters a Google search will allow before it goes ... So AP made a conscious decision. Don't tell me they didn't do this on purpose. Everybody knows how SEO works. I mean, Yoast, for crying out loud, these companies, including The Guardian and others, have paid Yoast ridiculous sums of money to explain to them about not only SEO optimization, but how these results can convey or miscommunicate certain topics, certain news stories. You want to make sure you get the content correctly in that search. So when someone types in, new AP poll or something like that, they'll see the point of it. They chose to put a less supported proposal before one that has overwhelming support. Why? Because one's an HR 1 and is a Democratic proposal. The other one is not and is opposed by Democrats. And you will not find it anywhere in HR 1. In fact, HR 1 effectively bans states from implementing voter ID. Something that is supported by the overwhelming majority of this country. They found 72% in the battleground states we've polled, and we're going to have a national number on this soon. It was more than that. It was almost universal. It was about 8 and 10%. In Georgia, by the way. It was like 82%.
Yep. Sorry,
these are recent numbers. Recent numbers from someone who actually polled the election correctly. I'm going to keep making those jabs, by the way. Joe Biden plus 14. Joe Biden plus 14. So, let's assume there are more Democrats than Republicans who oppose automatic voter registration. That would mean a lot less than, not a majority, truly supports automatic voter registration. And it would mean that voter ID is supported by more like 8 and 10 instead of 7 and 10. I mean, photo ID, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Photo ID requirements. I mean, what happened to these cute little secret equations to factor in the House bias of a poll? Let's do that. I can do that too. I don't know. Let's make this up right now. Right? I mean, I can do it too.
Let's ask Roman.
The AP was Biden plus 14. So I now think to adjust for the AP's House bias, the AP pollster's House bias, I mean, the AP doesn't poll, they hire someone. I am declaring that now if we adjust and use my super secret sauce, which I can't tell you about because I'm too smart and I just can't explain this to the layman like you. Mm-hmm. Okay? All right, if I use my secret sauce, then really about 42-45% support automatic voter registration, and really around 80 to 83% support voter ID. Don't ask me how I do it. I can't explain it to you. I don't have the time. We're moving on. Anyway, by the way, the polls were accurate. Listen, this is like, I still can't believe I'm hearing this crap. People were like, Rich, how long are you going to stay on how the accuracy of polls after the election? Forever. And this is why I did spend like a week talking about it afterwards. Look at what you're seeing now. This chump is seriously making the case that the polls were not inaccurate. Do I have to play CBS Inside Edition? 2-part series on how bad the polls were again? CBS! This isn't exactly, why the polls were so wrong again. New York Post, featuring me. I mean, this is like, we're just going to pretend. Listen, and I'm joking, I'm being funny here, but let's get serious for a second. As pollsters, to the rest of you out there, as I know a lot of you do watch the show, as pollsters, we should not let a fraud chump whose entire career is pretending to be a poll reader, we should not let him or others whitewash our failures for his own benefit, even if it's easier. Your sense of duty and your whatever integrity you have, it should dictate to you that your first job is to not allow people to continue to think that we don't care and we don't acknowledge when we do something wrong. We don't want to grow. That we're okay with this. Your first duty is to your own industry. It's not to the party you support, because let's face it, this entire industry is dominated by liberals. It's not the party you support. It's not the slime machine you're afraid is going to give you a bad grade on his report card.
Oh my God.
All right? The guy's a fraud. You know it. I know it. Tell the truth for once. Maybe we can earn back some respect. For the love of God. And not only that, this is an important industry. Look, they're using these numbers to dictate policy. It's more important than people give it credit for. It can be abused badly. And it's our job to make sure that it's not abused. We're doing a piss poor job at it. Piss poor job at it. I'll tell you that. All right. We're going to have Don on here in a little bit. Talk about what we got going on Saturday. I do want to bring up the economy real quick. That job support is not a bad job support. I got to be honest. I think it's temporary. Sadly. I do, because the pre-injection, and then look at how many public jobs there were, the pre-injection labor market numbers were bad. They're not good. And it's a shame because we did see this rebound post-shutdown. And there was clearly a loss of steam. Pumping $2 trillion into the public sector, well, really, I mean, it's crazy. It doesn't even make any sense. The private sector is the only thing that creates anything. The public sector is printing. They're not creating, they're printing. But they're printing money and pumping it back into themselves so they can rehire people that they let off before the shutdown.
But that just devalues.
And it's bicycle theory, Laura. It's bicycle theory. So when you stop pedaling the bicycle, you just fall.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And you can't continue to pedal forever is the point. That's why they call it the bicycle theory. It's not solid. It doesn't stand on its own.
Eventually.
Yeah.
Get winded.
Right? So while we do need a lot of these jobs back, and that's true, we did. The recouping of public sector jobs should always be fueled by the surplus of production in the private sector. So now we have a larger private sector, which means we can bankroll a larger public sector to do things that maybe society feels it needs to do. You cannot do it like this. And this is what we saw under Obama. We had some big numbers under Obama, you know, when he would inject cash into the economy like this. And look, I'm not just blaming Biden. I did not support my own personal views. I don't like to spout, but I did not support the CARES Act under Trump. It's $2 trillion we don't have to fix a problem we created ourselves. You don't need a phony stimulus. You don't need to sniff cocaine.
Or another.
That's what you're doing.
Tell you how to do it.
You don't need to sniff cocaine for energy. Work out. It's healthier. It's harder, but it's healthier. And it's more productive. But in any event, we did that, and it showed a little bump. Of course, it showed a little recoup from it, but it distorts economic data and makes it look better than it is, which is what distorted the last few months of wages under Trump. That wage growth was not as good as it looks. It distorts the wage growth. Personal income and outlays, that report from the Bureau of Economic Analysis, which will make GDP look better than it really is, by the way, that includes things like SNAP, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, food stamps. That's counted as personal income, folks. Stimulus payments, that's counted as personal income. So, yeah, I'd rather see the wages and salaries component go up instead of government assistance, which they never separate from that number when they report it. So it was a good report. I'm happy there was close to 1 million, but we literally had 5 million of private sector under Trump, and they at it. That was the right way.
Yeah. And
then he made a lot of mistakes toward the end there. And we began to taper a little bit. We were not going to keep getting these back-to-backs, but I do think that we could steadily have kept adding 1 million under Trump if we would have reversed course and went back to sanity. I do. I do. I don't see any reason that could not have happened. This is not strong. You know, you're getting a lot of reopenings because Gavin Newsom's afraid of his career. California alone, did you see how much that state can contribute to the jobs report when they open up restaurants again, even at half capacity? So that's what we're seeing. We're not really seeing, huge booms.
I'm just saying, if they keep doing the stimulus like they're doing,
they're talking about another round of stimulus.
I know the dollar's going to be worth nothing more than the paper that it's printed on.
The time for the infrastructure, yeah, absolutely, and the time for the infrastructure bill was when Trump got elected. First got elected. It's too late to do an infrastructure bill now. We don't have the money, and the worst part about it is we did a great report on People's Pundit Daily about this. You can't do an infrastructure bill under a Democratic administration. They seem to think all infrastructure is owned by the public, right? So much infrastructure in this country is privately owned. And Trump said it's $2 trillion infrastructure bill, yes, but this is a public and private partnership. Democrats don't do that. They want everything to go through the public, and they'll force the private sector. They're just trying to force the private sector into doing things. That's when you see corners cut. That's when then you'll see private entities sell off the crap to somebody else on the cheap, so they don't have to deal with it. That person will in turn cut corners, or worse, folks, they sell it to the friends of the Democratic politicians, and the Democratic politicians stuff their friends' pockets with your money, and then they short you. That's I mean, the fact of the matter is, there was an opportunity to actually, I know it's complicated and it sounds weird, but infrastructure investments can raise revenue. I know it's nuts, it sounds weird, but in the end, bridges, and they increase commerce. So to have some of these things, the bridges alone were in horrible shape when we did this report.
But you notice they
couldn't
never
believe
get
it.
done, though.
No, that's true.
They're
that's
the last thing to get done.
This is, here, you know what, real quick, bear with me a second, folks. I think this is important. I think that I should,
it's scary to
tell
find
you,
out.
yeah, and then how many, by the way, what's the percentage of those? So a Democratic bill, and I know from, Obama, when he had his infrastructure, and other Democrats, Hillary Clinton had her infrastructure plan, they don't seem to understand how this works. They just don't. They don't seem to understand how it works. Who owns infrastructures? Okay, 3 reasons the Democratic infrastructure plan is unrealistic. Oh, well, we've done a lot on this. U.S. infrastructure is crumbling. That was a good one. Trump, America must have the best, fastest, and most reliable infrastructure anywhere. Okay, so it is important to note that Trump had this. Some Republicans and some Democrats decided to kill it. It's that simple. We'll go over infrastructure in a little bit. I got Don. I want to bring Don in here, Laura, okay?
Mm-hmm. And don't forget, we need some questions.
Yeah, we'll get some questions in there with Don, okay? Mm-hmm. And gotcha. Just give me a hot minute to go ahead and add Don to the thing. Yeah, trying to think here. You know, the bottom line is Trump's infrastructure bill was still going. I'm just looking through some stuff here, but it was still going to add, at least in the short term, to the deficit. But at least again in the short term, that was going to happen. But Democrats and Republicans in Congress just didn't want to give Trump the damn credit. They just couldn't give him the credit. They just couldn't, man. So they had to do it the way they did it. All right, let me bring in Don. I don't know what I'm doing wrong here, but I am doing something wrong here.
What are you messing with?
You know what? I'll bring in Don after the break. Let's take a quick break. All right. When we come back, we'll bring in Don. We'll talk about what's going on Saturday. We'll go over infrastructure, and you know what? I'd like to get Don's take on infrastructure too. That would be good because you know, Donald Trump came around. Could you imagine a pre-Trump Republican calling for an infrastructure bill? And I think that Joe Biden he went the wrong way here. If he would have called for infrastructure right away, I think there could have been actually some bipartisan work, and it really would have been an opportunity for Republicans and Democrats to work together. I think at this point in the administration, he's killed that because Trump ran into resistance on his own with infrastructure bills. He had problems with Democrats when it came to infrastructure, and Democrats who always wanted infrastructure. They just didn't want to give Trump the credit. Mm-hmm. But there were Republicans who were like, oh, I know this is a Republican president, but I don't want to spend this money. So I don't know how Joe Biden's going to get this through. I mean, if he really cared about uniting the country, if he really cared about what was best for the country, he would have started this first. But he didn't. He chose to win a partisan direction, which is sad. Look, guys, we're going to take a real quick break with Bad Habit with 2 minutes. I'm going to get Don in here, and we'll be back in a hot minute.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. There's rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for a knife, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
And somebody said that sounds like that is not. That's Chris Bowen. That's not me singing that song. Although I like to sing. You know.
He has a good voice.
Should I give him a little one?
Well, not right now.
We're not going to do that now.
Yeah, no.
Look, you know, guys, go to an event or something that I do. Catch me in public. You know, maybe I get a couple in me. I'll give you a suspicious mind.
How about this? I'll
maybe
sell
a
tickets
desperado.
to an event, and then they all could pay to watch you sing.
I don't think they should do that. And not because I don't
for a
like
good
singing.
cause.
I just think that would be crazy. People will have a field day with that one. All right, let's bring in Don. Don, look, hey buddy, how you doing? Couldn't get the green screen on there. I was messing with it when we were on break. It is what it is. Can you hear me okay?
I can. How are you doing?
Living the dream as always, my friend. Living the dream as always. All right.
Nice.
Right before we went to break, we were talking about the infrastructure bill with Trump. I couldn't even remember how much stuff we had done on People's Pundit Daily about infrastructure, but we did. We did a lot. And it seems like Democrats don't understand how infrastructure even works in this country. And it's just true. I mean, I'm not saying that to be, Jack. The bottom line is they think everything can be funneled through the private sector, and that's going to somehow work and somehow regenerate revenue, right? And that's not how this stuff works, Don. I mean, that's just so much. Just to bring up a couple of things here. Where are we? All right, this is the World Economic Forum's Global Competitive Index, and it ranks infrastructure competitiveness. At the time we did this, we were 11th out of 138 global economies. They gave us a cumulative D+, all right, which means we have a terrible infrastructure rating. But the Democratic plan, which is what we're hearing again, it relies on inaccurate and unrealistic revenue projections, which is something they always do. Like somehow we're going to have enough money to pay for this. It is politically unrealistic because it doesn't enjoy popular support. And then 3, perhaps most importantly, it ignores practical challenges that arise from proposing a public sector-centered solution to a largely private sector problem. All right? And what I mean by that is, look at this. There are 90,580 dams in the country, and of those, the number deemed high hazard potentially increased last year to almost 20,000 we're at now. In 7 out of 10 dams in the U.S., by 2025, which is only 4 years from now, will be over 50 years old, and they're owned by private companies. Like, I think people hear infrastructure and they think, this is like owned by the U.S. government or something. Like, that's not how this works in this country. I mean, bottom line is, do you think he can even do this at this point? You think he's got the political capital to do this? I mean, if he had done it in the beginning, then I could see that. But what do you think now?
I sure hope not. I mean, this whole thing, this infrastructure bill is the Green New Deal. That's all it is. I mean, this isn't about, what is it, like 1/20th of this is going to go towards roads and bridges and those kind of things. And that's what people, I think, that's what you think when you hear infrastructure bill. We're going to fix all these old bridges. I remember former President Obama standing in front of the bridge in, I think it was Ohio. This bridge is going to, I mean, it was getting ready to collapse. So we spent, what, $800 billion. Joe Biden was the guy in charge of creating the website so we could track every single dollar. Remember that? Yeah, there never was a
That's
website.
right.
There was not only was there never a website, nobody even asked, where is the website? Imagine if that was Trump. But the bridge didn't get fixed. Nothing got fixed. So this is the Green New Deal. This is about green energy, electric cars, human infrastructure, whatever the hell that even means. I don't know. This is liberalism. This is what liberals do. Look at the last bill they just passed with COVID, that 10% of it had to actually do with the pandemic. This is what they do. They disguise them. They give them these nice little names like Helping Everyone in America bill, or, and it doesn't. I mean, it's just a bunch of garbage. I wish President Trump would have gotten it done, because I think he would have at least focused on the right things, and maybe we're not having this conversation now. But also, I'm not big on the money that we're spending as a country, and that includes President Trump, unfortunately. Fiscal conservative, so money's really important. I think it's we've got to run this country like a business. He did that, but he spent a lot of money. But this is just astronomical. You've already got AOC saying, "Oh, it's not enough," and it's going to be $10 trillion. And this is the Green New Deal. That's all it is. Welcome here. Does he have the political capital, Biden, to get it done? Boy, I sure hope not.
Yeah, I mean, Don, I just looked at that number to get a firm number for people. Only the percentage that is not owned. And this is where I start to get nervous when it comes to whatever you want to call it, liberalism, progressivism, statism. It's statism in general. Only 16% is owned by the government. That's it, nationwide. So you have no partnership program like Trump at least proposed. And what you're going to find is a ton of people who have these dilapidated infrastructures will sell off on the cheap to Joe Biden's friends, to the administration's friends. This is how this really works. We saw this under Obama too, right? And then they get the money, but they don't really have to hold up their end of the deal. And the taxpayer gets shortchanged on it, and no one's ever going to go after their backers and their benefactors, really, for not holding up their end of the deal, because they never do. That's how Democrats work. It's about fund me, fund my campaign, keep me in office, I'll kick back to you, and there's never any accountability. It's just like, and Johnny and Sally taxpayer take it. Really, they do. It's sad, man. The money that Trump spent, I'm with you on that. I can't tell you, the CARES Act was a mistake, Don. The solution was simply to not shut the damn economy down. We're already at the death count that Dr. Fauci used to scare the hell out of Donald Trump in the first place, right? I mean, we're there anyway. If you overly characterize or you mischaracterize, that's the best word to call it, misclassify deaths as COVID deaths. We were just telling a story the other day. Somebody we know, his wife has been dying of cancer for a while. I mean, she fought the good fight, but this time it wasn't going to happen. And this is in Jersey. I won't give the thing away, but very well known New Jersey medical system that handles a large proportion in Central Jersey. Okay, so basically, they knew she was on her deathbed. It was over. She caught COVID from somebody, probably a staff member. That's what people think, right? Because it wasn't, nobody had COVID who was going in and saying goodbyes. Nobody had COVID. So it had to be a member of the staff. And she was dying anyway, Don. She died infected with COVID. And they classified her as a COVID-19 death. I'm not even kidding. Death certificate, everything. This guy completely lost his you-know-what. Completely lost it. Even with, no pun intended here, but even with them being so liberal with that classification for money, by the way, the reason is money. So that institution, that which is healthcare is a business, that regional, I don't even know how to classify them without saying it, Laura, right? But that regional company that handles healthcare in that part of Jersey, they're going to get money for putting her down as a COVID death. So they mischaracterized her, whatever, incorrectly classified her as a COVID death. We've seen that with the flu, with pneumonia, on and on and on and on. Even with them doing that, we still hit Fauci's low-end range. So when he walked in with Donald Trump and said, you have to shut the economy down, and Trump said, I don't think that's a good idea. And he brought him the study from the UK, and he backed it up, and he says, CDC is on board with this. If we don't, you're looking at least 500,000 people dead, if not 2 million and change. Well, we are there anyway, Don. Yep. So the idea that cares... You cannot make an ahistoric policy, never before used in the history of human civilization, and expect, with such it was so arrogant, so definitive that you knew how it was going to impact someone. So definitive you were, even though it has never been tried. You have no evidence. You have no empirical data. You don't even have a storybook, a fairy tale, anything, a myth, a legend, nothing. Never have they done this before. And yet we were all supposed to believe this was without a doubt, definitively the way to go. The way to go was not to shut down the economy, and then we would never have had to inject $2 trillion into the economy. So he made the wrong decision there, Don. He did, period. And look, you lost anyway. So if it was a political concern, there's no way you can still justify this decision. It was wrong. Yep. It was incorrect.
I think in that situation, though, I mean, look at this thing, Rich. We're sitting here right now over a year into this thing, and I don't think these guys know anything about it. So I think for President Trump, kind of maybe fell into the same thing that a lot of us did, is that you want to trust somebody. I mean, who are you going to trust? You've got the CDC, you've got the World Health Organization, you've got all these people that this is what we pay them for. This is why we do this. This is why those organizations even exist in the first place. So you want to trust them. You want to think they know what they're talking about, because we don't. It's just average citizens. We don't exactly know all this stuff. But look at where we are today. They still don't know. They've been wrong about almost everything. World Health Organization, first thing they said was this was not an airborne disease. Remember, we were all wash your hands, wash your hands. It lives on cardboard this long, glass this long. That was all garbage. But to this day, they still, I don't think, know much about this thing. So I think for President Trump, he was going to get beat up. He was getting beat up anyway. And no matter what he did, he was going to get beat up. But I think he kind of got trapped into that. That's like, well, these guys got to know more about it than I do. As it turned out, he seemed to know more about it than they did. I mean, look at all the stuff, hydroxychloroquine, all the different things that he advocated for. He advocated for keeping the economy open. But science has been wrong about almost everything. Science is one of the most dangerous things we have today, because it's not a fact-based thing. It's a political agenda. China's been driving this whole thing. World Health Organization supports it, and the CDC supports the World Health Organization. It's a Ponzi scheme of information, and I think science is dead. When they call me a science denier, I say, "Yep, I am," because I think they lie to us. And I think to this day, if they would have just come out at the beginning, Rich, and said, "Here's what we think is going to happen," or we this is what we've looked at, we've run these tests, and this and this, and here's what we see happening. But that's not what they did. They threw it out there as it was a fact. Yep. Dr. Fauci, first thing he said, masks may do more harm than good. Now it's common sense. Anybody who's been through 6th grade science, blah, 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 knows that you should wear a mask. Oh, really? So what? So are we, Dr. Fauci didn't go to 6th grade science? Because that's what he said, right? So they've been wrong about everything. I think it was a trap for President Trump. I think he fell into it. And that's why I'm so glad to be here in Florida with Governor Ron DeSantis, who really didn't. He held the course from the beginning, and turns out he's right.
Yeah, Don, both great points. Starting with you want to trust somebody. You want to. And it's sad that we can't, right? The World Health Organization now, I'm surprised the CDC director is even still around for people who missed that last week or about a week and a half ago now. In January, you have the World Health Organization still telling people with the CDC, by the way, backing them up, like you said, with Dr. Fauci backing them up, that we're not even sure. No, masks could do more harm than good. And we're not even sure that this thing can be transmitted by human to human, interaction. We don't even know that yet. And then here you have the CDC director telling us all what we already knew, which was that this virus did not just spring up in January or whenever in December. It was likely, of course, around before that. And that they knew that they were telling the public lies. And it's when it comes to Dr. Fauci, and you just said the mask thing, which Fauci am I supposed to believe? I think a lot of that word science, and he uses it himself to, raise his credibility or something. People, I think, don't understand what science means anymore, Don. I don't think they understand that science is a compilation of theories, right? So what you think you know at the time is what the best the best decision you can make based on the evidence you have now. It's a theory, and things change with more information that you receive. Yet somehow they had no information and had definitive answers from the beginning. That's anti-science. In fact, that is not what early founders of this this form of science, that form, that is not what science is. The same thing with my field. It's really science and data. This all goes hand in hand. They are both dead. I mean, science and data, we talk about the perversion of science and data because people don't seem to understand statistical analysis, how, it's not definitive, in fact, and that there are so many things that go into it, assumptions that you can make that are incorrect, and yet we took all of these statistical models and threw them into this COVID, remember the models, Don, right? And threw them into this COVID conversation, and they all turned out to be complete jokes, even if they're going to come right around the target numbers. They did not come around them at the times they said it would happen. I mean, none of the assumptions that they made turned out to be correct. Right. And it's like God syndrome, arrogance, hubris, right? It's just it's really late stage Roman Republic thinking. It really is. And I mean Republic. I don't mean empire. Late stage Roman Republic thinking, where you drop the he Fauci. Yeah. Oh, he loves the attention. Laura said, Fauci really loves attention, and he wants to be seen as that definitive man. Yeah, I mean, it's typical Napoleon syndrome. He's look. You don't have to be a medical doctor to see what's going on with him. You don't have to be a Dr. Freud. I mean, this guy has he's
I have more height on him.
He is arrogant beyond belief, and he can't even bring himself to admit when he has been wrong. He's always got some excuse for being wrong. 2 days after that exchange with Rand Paul in the Senate, a study came out. One of the 3 controlled groups in the study came from the National Institute of Health. Are we to believe that Dr. Anthony Fauci was unaware of this study of antibodies in infected and vaccinated individuals, right? And the risk of reinfection? Are we to believe that? And by the way, it looks like some of those vaccines, in fact, maybe not everyone. Look, all vaccines are not equal. And it looks like the Pfizer vaccine, like, we don't know how it's going to end up. I'm just saying it looks like the Pfizer vaccine is A, probably safer, and B, more effective than the Moderna vaccine. And that's going to lead to, if this continues, that's going to lead to a whole other host of statements that Dr. Fauci has made that we know he knew was not true. Because, again, I cannot believe Dr. Anthony Fauci did not have the data on the adverse impact monitoring. So when they were coming out with these bold statements about how safe and the efficacy rates, and I have people calling us like, look at this. That is not true, right? And we'll drop this bomb when the time's right, because right now he'll just pivot. He'll just pivot, and the media will cover for him, and it has to be the right time. And we have to make it show it definitively. He knew they were full of crap, but they're his friends. That's it. He didn't want Pfizer to beat them to the punch. Can we get real here? He wanted Moderna to win that race. And he and he made statements that we know he knew were inaccurate. And also development of the vaccine and Operation Warp Speed in general, because he was trying to contradict Donald Trump. I'm with you 100%. I think Trump fell into a trap here. This was a trap, and Trump fell for the trap because he didn't know what else to do. And from the beginning, it just reeked of it. It reeked of it, Don.
From the very beginning of this, I just go back to the end of January last year. So the end of January 2020, Donald Trump expands the travel ban. So he's already realized that, okay, international people coming in, because nobody can tell me where this came from. Nobody can tell me who's the most infected. So he does a travel ban. Instantly, you had Dr. Fauci, you had Nancy Pelosi, you had Cuomo, de Blasio, all the players, all coming out and criticizing him for it. Oh my God, it's unnecessary. The World Health Organization came out and said they talked to China, and President Xi said, yeah, you don't really need to do that. But everybody told him he was wrong. He was right. He was right. That was the very first thing that happened. The whole Nancy Pelosi, a month later, she's down in Chinatown. Everybody come out to Chinatown. That was to make President Trump look racist against Asian people. They're trying to revive that whole narrative now about it's all Trump supporters that are beating up Asian people, which is ridiculous. But she's telling everybody to come on down. You've got the health director in New York telling everybody don't miss the parade. You got de Blasio saying hop on the subway, go catch a movie and go get some dinner and a movie. This is a month after what he did. And what did we hear ever since then? He didn't do anything. He didn't react. He pretended like it wasn't real. He was the only one that did anything. And it turns out he was right. Look at Dr. Fauci. 2 weeks before opening season last year, it's opening day yesterday here for Major League Baseball. Nobody should be in these arenas. Nobody should be, there should be no live attendance at these arenas. 2 weeks later, Rich, he's sitting in the arena all by himself with his wife and his friend, no mask on, water bottle between his legs. They're the only people in the stadium. So he has a Napoleon complex, but he also has zero self-awareness. Either that or his complex is just so big, he figures I'm Dr. Fauci, but they all mocked Trump for what he did. Now he didn't do anything. And let's be honest about the whole vaccine. These people, all of them, Dr. Fauci, all of them, they did not want this vaccine out before the election. They were absolutely. This was a huge disappointment to them because Joe Biden was going to be riding in his white horse and he was going to be the savior. Wow, look at that. Now we already have a vaccine. He's only been here a week. So they were furious about that thing being out before the election.
Yeah, and same thing with the jobs and everything. The vaccine was supposed to be the only way to have things reopen once everybody's vaccinated. Gavin Newsom faces a recall, Cuomo faces impeachment, and they all start allowing things to reopen, right? That's what really happened. Look at the jobs report today. 300,000, 1/3 of that number is leisure and hospitality. That's what happens when big blue states say, okay, you can go eat dinner in a restaurant now. I don't want to be recalled. Right. That's all this is, Don. Mm-hmm. That's all this is. And
CYA.
50,000 in manufacturing. That's it. And people are all pointing in the media at the 100,000 construction, and they're like, construction's well on its way back. Construction was more than halfway recovered the very first month under Donald Trump when he ended the shutdown. So don't give me like all of a sudden Joe Biden's going to be the one who brought back U.S. construction. Construction is what recuperated. Manufacturing did not. And I told you, like, we were looking at these regional manufacturing indexes, and they're inflated. They're being distorted. And it looks like they're very strong. The truth is they're very volatile, and they are sentiment-based in some of the components. So when you have big blue states saying, okay, now you can do this, now you can do that, it can artificially inflate these numbers, and it is. And I'm trying to say that the orders indexes do not match the overall business, the general business condition indexes. And what we call that is overheating. Okay, so in other words, it can't hold itself. It's not sustainable, and there's a danger of overheating, which predates recession. By the way, all right, that's what typically happens, and not typically. That is what happens. Now look at these manufacturing numbers. That does not justify a 53 on the Philadelphia Manufacturing Index, or a 40 in the Dallas Fed, Texas, or the Empire State too went to the moon. That's because now these people facing political consequences, now they want Joe Biden again to get the credit, so they make these decisions, turn these things around, and the sentiment goes to the moon. But it shows you that the vaccine was not widely distributed when they decided to pull these triggers, Don. So what happened to going back to normal only when the vaccine is out? Everything they did, they sacrificed your job. They sacrificed your health. They sacrificed the welfare of the country to defeat Donald Trump. What do you want to say, Laura? I see you over there jumping up and down.
No,
what do you want to say?
I just wanted to mention, you remember how devastated he was in the interview with Laura Trump? How close he was to saving
in the interview with Laura Trump, it seems like he knows now. So it seems like he realizes that he got, swindled on this thing. Man, he was like, we were so close. Before COVID, we were so close. And, that's what I tell Laura all the time. Republicans were close to real change this time. They really were. Change. They really were, because he could have changed the order. And I don't mean, I mean the order of things. Mm-hmm. He could have changed, there's only so much a system can take. What's his name? Former Soviet leader in the 80s. Nikolai Gorbachev.
Gorbachev.
Mikhail Gorbachev. He knew that. That all you had to, that the system itself cannot continue to self-perpetuate if you make these reforms, and it will eventually, as hard as they'll try to hold on, it'll collapse. That you have to rebuild into something that you want to rebuild it into. But I don't know that a lot of these people could have taken another 4 years of Donald Trump. Don, China, the order China was enjoying, not shrinking at 20% each damn quarter, Don. Manufacturing base. You can't have that,
They'll be back big now,
brother.
They'll be back big. They'll be back big now, China. So this this is really good for them. But just look at what they did to Florida. You were here through most of that. Look what they did to Ron DeSantis and Florida. Why do you think he's the most hated governor in the country? Because he destroyed their narrative with reality. The reality of living in Florida destroys their whole narrative with the shutdowns in New York, California, all across the country. And he is their biggest enemy because of reality. Think about that.
An aging population, Don, median age above everybody, and then of course we have the New York City and the state of New York. I mean, it started in Rochelle, right? And then it shifted south, of course. But New York City, the travel there, that. I mean, back to and from. I mean, this was a recipe for disaster for Florida. What the hell happened? I don't understand. If everything this and Florida too is a thorn in their side with the mask mandates, and I can still see that the majority of Americans still think that people should wear masks, which is to me a real testament to the media. They still do have the power to misinform, and it's unfortunate because there's a lot of misnomers, a reinfection, what people think about the reinfection rates, just through the roof. Oh, whether or not you need to be hospitalized. What is the risk to hospitalization if people catch COVID? They have these wild, unrealistic, and they're just they're not supported by evidence. There's this ridiculous expectations about this virus that don't match reality, and that's the media. There is no place, no state, no country, no control anywhere where we were able to find a relationship between decreased infections and the mask mandate. Florida really throws a wrench into that because he did such a good job. And we saw that spike. We saw it. We talked about this on even your show, right? When it was at the height of the pandemic. The infections were falling. Hospitalizations were falling. And I mean, none of this had anything to do with the mask wearing.
Nope. Or shutdowns.
None of it. No shutdowns. I mean, even in California and in New York, and the problem with when we look at some of the Asian countries, in California is the same thing. That mask wearing had nothing to do with the virus in some of these areas. So it really screws up their narrative because Californians wore masks anyway. And then in Asian countries, I mean, we're talking about pollution and different aspects to this debate, it wasn't just COVID-19 that causes certain populations to put a mask on. But there is no place where we can find, and I mean, guys, picture it, a line graph that shows you the trend in infections and a plot band that shows you the date the mask was implemented. There's no evidence. None. And that's not, I don't even think, Laura and I were discussing this, and I have a couple go-to doctors. I'm not even sure that's an indictment on masks, their ability to prevent the spread themselves. I think it could be what Dr. Fauci originally said, which is that people are not, they don't wear them correctly.
Right.
The general population doesn't wear them correctly. The other day, I'm not going to get into it, but the other day, this woman's looking at me crooked because I'm not wearing a mask. We're in line, right? And she's over there rubbing her nose, scratching her nose, pulling her mask down. She picked her nose and then put her pin in the thing online, to pay for her groceries. And I'm like, what do you say to that? There's no benefit to wearing masks if the entire population doesn't behave or wear them correctly. Right. So it's just it's
back to his statement when Fauci said that they may do more harm than good. What he said, he went on to say, just like you're talking about, he said you'll keep grabbing your mask and you'll keep doing this, which is because at the time, remember, they were trying to sell the thing that this was a contact thing, so telling you how long it lives on cardboard and glass and plastic, yes, and blah, blah, blah. So, but what he said was absolutely true. And you look at people, you just gave a great example of that. Look at people are a mess with the masks. They're down, or I've seen them down below the mouth even. That's how you're protecting your chin now. But it's, people are a mess wearing the mask. People are sick of wearing the mask too, which is a huge problem that they have right now. But you're constantly touching it, adjusting it. If I was talking with a mask on right now, I would have touched it probably 20 times by now. Mm-hmm. Every time I talk, I got to pull it back up. And so what he said was actually correct. That's the common sense stuff where they say, well, if you've been to sixth grade science, you would know all this stuff. No, that was the common sense stuff. Look at how they had to pivot from that, which was really, really unfortunate for the scientific community.
Yeah. Yep. And the damage it does to the long-term credibility of these communities as authorities. Like you said, people want to have faith in somebody to tell them the truth, especially when you have such a serious crisis, right? When we have lost faith in all of these institutions, that is not healthy for society at all. And I got to tell you, Don, all of these people who are the truth is we don't know that much about these mRNA vaccines. And you have everybody racing to ruin their reputation on something they don't really know that much about. I mean, this is, and people, doctor wouldn't lie. I mean, do I need to pull up the footage of doctors, saying that the new Purdue pharma painkiller is not addictive and there's a difference between, dependency and drug-seeking behavior. I mean, this is, come on, man. I mean, doctors don't lie. They're somehow more virtuous than the rest of us. That's a load of crap. In fact, most of them have God complexes and are arrogant and are probably need some kind of, we are supposed to have regulation, obviously, but there's just nobody regulating these people right now. There's nobody holding them accountable. And he took it on the chin. He had an interview. The guy's name is slipping me, but he's an actor and he's Mexican descent. And he took Fauci to task on the truth, like about what you really know about these mRNA vaccines. You remember that? And the ability to sue vaccines. He did not let him, vaccine developers, he did not let him get away with this false statement. He said, well, that's not true. Actually, you can sue whoever you want to sue. That is not true. There are protections, and if there is some problem with the vaccine and people, like a civil suit was successful, which in all likelihood it would not be, the government would assume the responsibility of the vaccine developer anyway. So the idea that there aren't protections for vaccine developers is a lie. And the point he was trying to make is that when you remove that fear of being sued and personally responsible for a failed product, when you remove that, you're removing the incentive to create a truly safe product. Yes. And I think it was a very fair point, Don. Very fair point indeed, But this is, you and I go back. So I want to get this in here before Ted Cruz. They hate Ted Cruz. I'm not even sure I particularly like the guy. I'm on the fence with him. I got to be honest. But you can count on Ted to be Ted, right? Or at least, right? And they're always going after him. During the Trump administration, it was constantly one scumbag after another being used by the media as a weapon to beat Donald Trump with. The Michael Avenattis of the world. This new scumbag has a book. This new dirtbag has a book. This rapist started a super PAC. This little child molester, is going to start whatever you want to call somebody like a John Weaver. I mean, he's not a child molester, but he is a grown man who grooms young boys, at least as young as 14, for sexual relationships. All right, so, these are the kinds of pieces of trash that were used as weapons to beat Donald Trump in the head with politically. Now today, we have the resurrection of John Boehner, the former Speaker of the House and House Leader and lobbyists' wet dream, okay? We have this guy with a book where he trashes Ted Cruz, and everybody jumps on board with it. Everybody jumps on board. And he's actually been used. Like, I saw a tweet by a blue check liberalite who was like, listen, even John Boehner has the moral courage to stand up. And that should tell you everything you need to know about Ted Cruz. Don, how many promises has John Boehner broken in his political career? I mean, what kind of person was John Boehner? Don, you and I have been around a long time, and I'm going to pull up something specific here about John Boehner. But
I think the easier thing would be to figure out how many promises he kept, because I can't think of many. I mean, I think that's the easier thing. But this is the John McCain syndrome, right? Everybody wants to be. This is how. Look at Dr. Burks now this week coming out, and I had this mean phone call from Donald Trump because she's trying to get back in. Because they've kicked her out, and her ego, she needs to be on TV with a different scarf every 5 minutes. So, but look at this. This is what everybody does. It's the cowardly thing to do. So John Boehner, I mean, give me a break. It's the John McCain syndrome. It's they're going to like me. Look what they did to John McCain in the 2008 election cycle, and he still thought they all loved him. And as long as he talked bad about the Tea Party or said horrible things about Republicans, we're not like that. I'm better than that. It's the same thing. So I'm sure Paul Ryan will have a book coming out next year. I don't know. He's probably next on. He's probably on debt right now. But it's just all ridiculous. John Boehner, just do whatever you're doing in the marijuana industry or whatever it is you're doing now, and just your time is done. I mean, they didn't think how much they hated this guy. Think how much they hated John Boehner, and we were all sitting there going, I wasn't ever really that crazy about him, because, like you said, how many promises did he break? Again, the better question is, how many did he keep? I'm not aware of any.
You want to see my best impression of John Boehner?
Yes.
The guy cried at everything. He was a complete and total embarrassment. Here is this. We've been around a while, Don, and I am maybe a little too old. I shouldn't remember this, but I do remember this. Are you ready? May 10th, 1996. Remember, John Boehner is now a new moral authority on the rest of the Republican Party. A member of the House Republican leadership team admitted Friday that he distributed a tobacco PAC's campaign checks on the House floor, but said he'll never do it again. All right, people, there was a vote. John Boehner was literally walking around the floor of the House with a stack of checks for big tobacco, paying off members. I'm not kidding. I wish I was kidding, but I am not. All right. He took his own, and then he proceeded to walk across the floor of the House and buy votes from big tobacco so he could poison you more with their chemicals. Okay. I remember when this happened, and it was such an embarrassment for people like me who were not liberal, because this is when the height of the Republican Party is the party of big business, right? And I never really liked the Republican Party. That's not fair for me to say. I don't like parties. I don't like either party at all, to be honest. I just think that one is more dangerous than the other. But in any event, this was an embarrassment for people at that time who would really try to make the argument that, I think they have an unfair stigma attached to them. And in truth, if you look at donations, because I was always a data guy, if you look at donations, they're both the parties of big business. They just have different businesses that support them. And here's John Boehner, by the way, caught on video, all right, strolling around. I will never forget when, and he was a commie too. I will never forget when this commie, and he was a professor, right, comes and he's like, hey, I got a buddy, check it out. Look at what, and he rolls the tape. I'm like, oh my God, caught right on C-SPAN. This is like, and then this guy, this is how corrupt the Republican Party leadership or the establishment has been for this long. These are the moral people that would later, go on to be the Speaker of the House, Don. I mean, after doing stuff like, as if he ever changed his policy. He, went from being a bar owner. He's the worst of the worst because and this is what I mean by that. He's like a John Roberts, where he comes up in one world and then totally forgets where he comes from, screws over the people that got him there, helped him get to where he is. And then, there's nothing worse than someone who screws over their own, like betrays their own. And that's who John Boehner is. Remember the ports with Obama, right? And then the tearful sessions, right? All Obama ever had to do to that chump was give him a 20-year-old port, and he would back whatever Obama wanted. We're not going to raise the debt ceiling. Here, John, have a sniffer. And that's how easy John is to buy. He's the worst kind of person, man. He is. And to pretend like Ted Cruz, and you remember, because this was 10, 12, 14, that was really the resurgence of people who said, you know what? No, we're serious when we say we don't want to increase the debt limit. We don't want to expand the size and scope of government. We are serious when we say that people, that the Republican Party is only helping to manage the decline. That's it. And Ted Cruz was elected to do two things. One, to stop Obamacare, and two, to get control of government spending. That is what he ran on. So he used the debt limit increase, right? You remember this, to force a vote to repeal Obamacare. So when Boehner is mocking him in this passage everyone's reporting on, it's important to remember that Ted Cruz, no matter what you say about him, was only trying to use the tools at his disposal to keep the promise he made to the voters of Texas. And John Boehner didn't like him coming to D.C. and upsetting the apple cart by having the audacity to try to keep his promise to the American voter. So this is what people should remember the context when they see all of these headlines that everyone's using in this cute and funny fashion. This is a corrupt leader of the House of Representatives mad at a new emerging insurgent senator coming in and having the audacity to be a representative. It's to represent the voter.
So just like I was saying, this is the John McCain syndrome. I mean, take John McCain, take Mitt Romney, take Paul Ryan, take John Boehner. What do they do when they're doing something that's unpopular with the people they're representing? Is they attack. They attack anybody who says, "Hey, we made a promise that we're not going to do this." So what they use the same terminology that the left uses. They attack them, which of course then CNN, they're all over CNN and MSNBC, all the other news channels, because liberals love that. Here, let's put John Boehner, the Speaker of the House, on to trash the Tea Party, to say they're all a bunch of radicals. So that's my biggest problem with this, and that's why I call it the John McCain thing. Again, now our current one is Mitt Romney doing the same thing. And this is what they do. And I don't even understand why they're even call themselves Republicans or run as conservatives. They run on conservative platforms. And there's nothing conservative at all about them. And they don't even represent the people that they're elected by. That's what infuriates me, and I think does a lot of other people as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, say what you want. You agree, you disagree, you like them, you don't like them. I'm not defending Ted Cruz because I'm some personal friend and fan of Ted Cruz. He did what, and same thing with Donald Trump. He did what he was what he told the voters he would do, and that is their real problem. So make no mistake about it. If you fall for these dupes, understand you are the dupe. All right, John and Politico. Right? He just like Mitch McConnell had the same damn playbook, John Boehner. Every time he had a problem with a real conservative who, didn't lie to the voters to get elected like he did for all those years. Every time he had a problem with them, same playbook, run a Politico, smear, and then you would have this, either outright on the record or off the record, the Ted Cruz, the Jim Jordan causing a problem. This new guy, Mark Meadows, is a real pain. He's nasty. Nobody likes him, right? And there are always these immature little smears, right? And nobody wants to eat lunch with Jim Jordan. He's such a nasty person, right? They're cornballs. They are total cornballs. All right, Laura, but I hear you. So, hey, are you going to stick around for the Q&A, Don?
Sure.
All right, let's stick around. Let's go. Fire away, Laura, right? Because I said, Laura, I got to stop a little bit early. We have to do, we have to finish California. We're going to be doing the recall poll. And then we're going to be we have the national poll. We better wrap up this weekend.
But it's Freewheeling Willing Friday.
But she's like,
listen, I may have
better
allergies,
cut.
I
usually cut it 15 minutes before, and she's like, after what you guys did last time, half an hour right now, Q&A. Go ahead.
So, Shane Grieves, I want to say, from Locals wanted to know, what's your take on Kamala Harris being no longer in charge of the border crisis? It seemed to me like Biden camp was giving her a task that they knew she would fail. Dana Perino just theorized that Barack Obama intervened and got Kamala out of that job. And on that, what is the relationship between Obama and Kamala? Similar to her relationship with Willie?
Oh, boy.
Love the show. Keep up the good work.
Yeah, I'd say that it's look, I'm gonna leave it here. There's a reason why Mrs. Obama doesn't like Kamala Harris, and I'm gonna leave it at that. All right, but of course there are a lot of these rumors. It's like I don't know if I'd call it an open secret, Don. I guess it probably is safe to call an open secret. I don't know, but it is. Yeah, there absolutely is. There has been for years talk about that. I think that also Kamala is unpopular. She's deeply unpopular. Look, even the Reuters Ipsos poll can't get her above 44%. Or YouGov, I'm sorry. So nobody liked Kamala. Nobody ever liked Kamala. That's why she never made it to Iowa. I think the Trump campaign made a major mistake by not putting her as more of the face. Joe is a dementia patient, and Kamala Harris is going to be running the show. Every single battleground state, we found at least 4 in 10 voters in the battleground state were uncomfortable with the idea of Kamala Harris taking over for Joe Biden if Joe Biden couldn't finish his first term. We asked that everywhere, and I think that was a major mistake. But she's insensitive, she's callous, and when you're looking at this border crisis and you're trying to be the one who takes the position of humanity, which is ludicrous because there's nothing humane about illegal immigration. If you support illegal immigration, you are the immoral one. I understand that. You support young girls having to do sexual favors to get up to that border. You support young girls being kidnapped on the way and being thrown into MS-13 trafficking rings. You support drug overdoses that happen every day in America. You support the destruction of that drug addiction has on U.S. families all over the country. You are not the humane one in this argument. You are frankly, it's borderline evil. If you really know this issue, I don't know how on earth you could call yourself moral. When we all know, Don, that it's really for the benefit of both parties to have a permanent underclass. They never want these people to achieve the American dream. They want them to be an underclass. They view them as subhuman, right? Look at Mark Elias's tweet about black people today. That is how the white liberal views minorities in this country. It's a problem. The Georgia voter ID law is a problem because blacks can't find their driver's license number on their driver's license. Don, what do you think Martin Luther King would have to say about that if he was around today?
It's unbelievable, and I'll never understand this, how you don't have the minority groups, the NAACPs, all these groups that represent minorities. Why aren't they speaking out? Because these people are insulting them. They don't know how to use the internet. They can't figure out which number to use on their driver's license. That's for the ones that, according to them, can even figure out how to get a driver's license or an ID.
Yes.
They are so incredibly insulting to these people. If you can't figure out if you're for me or for Trump, you ain't black. I mean, that's just another example of it. But they insult these people on a daily basis, and you never hear anything. Nobody speaks up. So these groups don't represent the minorities at all. They don't care about them. It's only money, and I think that's it. But yeah, I want to say to your point that was a huge mistake by the Trump campaign, was not putting the focus on Kamala Harris. My goodness gracious. All he had to do was look back at 2008 and what they did to Sarah Palin, right? I mean, I don't think any
That's
Republican was going to win in 2008 because of the George Bush hatred and all those things going on. However, they destroyed any chance he had. They destroyed it with Sarah Palin because you want her to be your president. That's all they had to do. And I can't believe they didn't do it, because she is not a likable person. But the whole thing, I think, to answer the question from my end, this was just an example of how out of touch, how unprepared Joe Biden is. I guess you need more than 47 years to be prepared for this job. But he was asked a question, he was put on the spot, so he just blurted out, I'm going to put the vice president in charge of this. This was the day before his press conference. Keep that in mind. The proper answer would have been, I have a major announcement to make on that tomorrow. What he proved, and we can all see it now, is that he had no discussions with her. She had no idea he was going to do that.
No clue.
No clue. And she didn't want it. She didn't want anything to do with it. So, I mean, it's just an example of how unprepared this guy is, or just maybe how lost he is at this point. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe it's not actual preparation. It's just he's past his time. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think it was 24 hours later when he remarked that President Harris and I are doing a great job at the border, or whatever he said he was doing. I mean, he's lost. And by the way, for the, racist white liberal like Mark Elias, and he's a racist white liberal. I mean, that is racism, Don. This is not debatable. If you think black people are too dumb to find a driver's license number on their driver's license, you're a freaking racist. And by the way, in Georgia, this is the number, Don. In general, do you support or oppose each of the following election integrity laws and policies, or are you unsure? Requiring all voters to provide photo identification to cast a vote. Strongly support African Americans, black or African American. Strongly support 44%. Support 32.1%. And so 44.1 and 32.1. Don, almost roughly 75% of African Americans and blacks in Georgia support a photo ID. How do I know I'm right about that? Because I nailed the actual election. So I know I'm right about that. And both. So I don't really care what other people may show in Georgia. That is right. I know it's right. And by the way, that's more than even... No, it's about the same as Asians, and Hispanics are a little bit higher, and whites are higher. I mean, and whites are almost 9 in 10.
Yeah.
Almost 9 in 10. Like, people across the board, the only ones who do not support it is the white liberal like Mark. And I can prove that.
Yeah.
Strongly oppose white Caucasian. 2.1%. Out of that 2.1%, how many identify as liberal? Every single one of them.
Yeah.
Every single respondent who said strongly opposed in the white Caucasian category is liberal. Not a moderate, not a conservative, not a single one. They are liberal. It's incredible. That's what I love about nesting variables. Okay, well, we know how whites and Caucasians think, so what about that strongly opposed category? How many of the white strongly opposed are ideologically different? And there's not a single difference, none. And by the way, opposed was only 4. So altogether, 6.6%. That's what Mark represents. And he's supposed to be speaking for black people?
Yep. And feels perfectly comfortable doing it.
Right. Perfectly comfortable. As if he's an authority. Yep. How dare you challenge him? It's crazy, man. It's crazy.
Yep.
Cray.
Go ahead,
Guard
Laura.
of Liberty wants to know, what do you think about the Jim Banks memo? It sounds like a GOP that actually wants to win.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to. Do you know about that? I heard, but I didn't get a chance to read all about that. Yeah, I just didn't yet. I was preparing for the show and the poll. You know, I'll look at that and I'll circle back to it because I think it was Jack. Somebody sent me a tweet and asked the same thing. Sent me an actual text message, and I didn't get a chance to go over it yet. But I'll say this: look, you know. I guess it's better late than never, Don, I guess. It's just that I tend not to view some of these people all that seriously because when, you know, it was not the hit the fan thing. What, the grindstone? What's the other expression? Right? I there's only a few that were really serious, and he's not one of them. So we'll see. We'll see. Same thing, like I said, with the Ohio candidate. But basically, where were these people? They're champions now of all these things. Where were they? But I'll reserve judgment until I read it. I'll see.
Jim B would like to know, can someone besides Sununu beat Hassan? And can a Republican beat Murphy in New Jersey?
Yeah, so that's a good question, Don, in New Hampshire. Sununu's a rock star. That name is very respected in New Hampshire across the board. I think New Hampshire was... I don't think that it accurately reflected the state of the state. All right? Like the November election, I think that Trump could have and should have done better there. COVID was a big problem in New Hampshire, even though it really wasn't, which was a little bit shocking to me. But I think that right now they have some rebuilding to do, and it's probably smart to do it with people that are not shoo-ins, but you know, he's very popular. He is. The family has always been popular there, Don. That's true. And then what was the other part of that?
Do you think anybody could beat Murphy?
In Murphy, not anybody I've heard of yet. No. The secret sauce for Chris Christie was magic. It was magic. It was. You add anything to that, Don? You want to add anything to that?
No, yeah, and I agree with that. Yeah, I think Sununu is really popular, and I think he's the best chance out there. I just don't see anybody else. Yeah, I agree with everything you said on that.
Yeah, and Chris Christie, that was rare. That was rare, beautiful political magic. And they were terrified of him, which is why they pulled Bridgegate. Because they knew he was going to crush Hillary Clinton. He was going to crush her. And he would have. And if Trump didn't jump into the race, Chris Christie probably, even with Bridgegate, would have been a bigger factor in the Republican primary.
Yeah.
But now he's killed himself with all the flip-flops.
Hey, Howard!
Now he's killed himself with all those flip-flops, Don.
Yeah.
You can't keep going back and forth like this. I'm Trump's best friend. Trump's an idiot. That's an insurrection. Maybe it isn't. I mean, you just can't keep doing this. How about you shut your fat mouth, Chris, until you have all the facts, right? I know you're a straight-talking guy. I'm not going to hurt your feelings by calling you fat. Shut your fat mouth.
Hey, you lost some weight.
Learn the topic before you... Look, I happen to know a little bit about this because of where I'm from. But us New Yorkers and New Jerseyans have a terrible habit of wanting to give our opinion before we know what we're talking about.
Howard Skinner.
I used to be one of them.
I said, "Hey, Howard," before.
Oh, hey, Howard.
I wasn't just crazy. Whatchamacallit? Where was I? Sorry.
Ranger buddy of mine.
Yes.
Oh, he was a ranger.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Steve at Sly Wilcox wants to know, who determines where polling locations are placed? State, county, precinct? Trying to understand why in some places the lines are hours long and other places they are short. I personally have never waited more than 30 minutes.
Yeah, so all of that's a great question. All of that is the purview of the Secretary of State. But individual secretaries of elections, county clerks, registrars, they're called different things. Recorders, depending on where you are. They are the ones who, and of course they get the approval going up the chain of command, but they are the ones who do this. So when you hear about this long line in this blue area and it's voter suppression, it's Democrats then suppressing their own vote. I mean, they can nobody to blame but themselves. It was never Brian Kemp's fault that there weren't enough machines in Atlanta. Now, can there be bills that reduce the number of polling locations? Sure. But folks, I gotta tell you, most of this stuff is logistical nightmares because of the incompetent way that, or the incompetent people who are in these local supervisors of elections in the case of Georgia, right? Say Maricopa County, that's on Fontes. I mean, he has plenty of areas, and we know that, Don, from look at Texas. Look at the turnout in Texas. And they said, oh, Abbott, he wrote, that bill killed us. We don't have enough polling locations. It was fine, wasn't it? Everything was fine. Turnout was super high. They still couldn't take the state. What they really meant was there was just not enough unsupervised drop boxes and curbside voting. That's what they really mean in most of the times, right? I mean, so in Florida, Broward County was conducted very efficiently this time. It was always a problem. We used to hear those very same complaints out of Brenda Snipes. Miami was never really badly managed except for the hanging Chad, I'm talking about, in the recent modern, but there are lines, and sometimes you have high populations, even in Alachua. What's the longest we ever waited on it? Sometimes they got high turnout in Alachua, you could wait.
That one was
Alachua.
I think it was 15 minutes, but that was
no, it was 16. Hillary versus Trump. When there was a long
minutes.
No, it was longer than that.
You think so?
Yeah, we waited 45 minutes, maybe 35 minutes. But it was them, Don. And when we get in there, you have a recording of it. Go back and see. Yeah. When we got in there, it was them. It was incompetent. They were not really knowing, let me see whose name is in the book. Oh, no, this is the wrong book. Just incompetence. Because when you go in Florida, for people who don't know, you got to sign your name on the tab, at least in most areas. Sign your name on the tablet to show your license, compare it so they can compare the signature. And within reason, it's the correct signature. And then they'll look in the book to see whether you're a registered
address.
Republican, you're a Democrat, you're an independent, what address is correct, matches. And then they'll give you the ballot that you need in the folder, and that's how it goes. Yeah, I mean, it's a little... If you're not competent, then you're not competent. And then with DeSantis versus Gillum, not DeSantis versus Gillum. What was it was a primary, it was the Republican primary and Democratic primary for president. It was the presidential primaries during the pandemic. Very efficient, very safe, very efficient. It just depends on your location and who's running it.
We didn't even wait. Really?
We didn't wait at all.
No.
Same damn polling location.
Yeah.
Went right through. And it was, again, it was pretty actually. No, people weren't really afraid to vote over there. They were voting. We went in there, sanitizer 6 feet across. They
sanitized your license for you. They sanitized their hands before they touched the license.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but a lot has to do with the idiots who conduct our elections on the ground. I mean, it's just true. Sorry. I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but it's the truth.
Yep.
Somebody said, FYI, you need to keep having Don on. And P.S. get him a locals too. Show today was amazing.
We are going to keep keep having Don on, and Don's got his show on Saturday, which is gonna go video soon. And Don, I will talk to you more about locals pages. Yes. All right.
Roger Lee would like to know any pollsters from Canada that you guys trust.
No.
Sorry.
No. Yeah, I just don't know them well enough.
Yeah,
because
to say I trust you.
There are people who have made mistakes, but I still trust them. Because I know that they're honest in what they do, and that they, are just making a mistake. Like one, for instance, and I won't name him, he keeps making bad calls. He had some good calls. Like he knew Georgia would be closer than, some Republicans thought. But he keeps making the same mistake, which is waiting, because his philosophy, Don, is that he doesn't want to be seen as, putting his thumb on the scale, right? So he just continues to wait by exit polls in the prior election. And my argument is, you're really at this point, you are abdicating most of your duty, because the job of a pollster really is to determine what the electorate's going to look like. And then, of course, voting preference is the second part of that. The first part is, what will the electorate look like? Who is going to vote? Because without knowing that, it doesn't really matter what you found when it came to vote preference. You would never know how to weight it correctly. So I trust him because I know he's collecting the data properly. He's not weighting it properly and he's doing it for the right reasons. You know, I don't know enough about any pollster in Canada to make that judgment.
Yep.
Ready for
Yeah,
me?
oh yeah, I'm ready.
Oh,
Yeah.
you gotta look at me because you just looked at the camera. It's just like, where am I going? I don't know. It's my turn.
This is a family
Because you
show,
have to remember,
Rich.
I have a little
Family
delay
show.
going on right now.
Yeah, you got a delay. That's
So,
right. She has like a maybe 2-second delay or something.
I don't even want to try to say this person's name, but you know who you are. I want to know, what is DeSantis' stance on war and trade?
So do I. No, I'm kidding. I think that and Don, you know some people. You know some people around him too. So on trade, I think actually he's a little bit more trustworthy on trade. I assume you're a Trumper, so I would tell you he's probably a little bit more trustworthy on trade. He came around. I know his views changed under Donald Trump, and he understood that he heard there. He's a veteran of the Navy, if I'm not mistaken. So anyone, and look, I'm a vet, so I don't mean this in any particular, and I'm not trying to insult anybody. Don, you're a vet, but I do and am skeptical of veteran politicians when it comes to war, because I don't know. I just don't. I'm skeptical of them. History has taught me to be skeptical. What do you think?
Yeah, I think when it comes to trade, I think you're exactly right. I think he learned a lot under President Trump, and I wish everybody would have learned a lot of it. That was my thing from the beginning of this. That's where I really got on board with Trump. Is I've always thought we should have a business person running the country, because the country should be run as a fiscal conservative. The country should be run as a business. Yeah, I mean, you don't spend money you don't have. No business can do that. So I think on the trade side of it, he learned a lot, especially the interaction with China. And Donald Trump, that's the playbook. That's how we deal with China. Otherwise, we're in a lot of trouble. And I think Biden doing the opposite of what Donald Trump did is really bad. So it's going to accelerate that. I think when it comes to the war thing, I've never heard him talk a lot about what he supports. I know he believes in a strong America, but I also know that defense spending is a big thing for him. So I know he was very supportive of what President Trump did with as far as military spending. So I know he's a big supporter of that, but how he feels about different countries and possible confrontations with them, I guess I don't really know a lot about that. It's not something he's spoken a lot about.
Yeah, I the defense spending is all I can really rely on, but to me that doesn't tell you where he is on interventions, because even I think that, and I'm a big proponent, I'm a big critic of how much defense gets in the budget, because I know so many defense contractors, and I know that we're just like fueling their lifestyle, and we're overpaying these pieces of trash. I mean, look, and sorry, some of you are even my friends, but you damn well know I'm telling the truth. You overcharge and underperform and underdeliver, and you know it. Right. I mean, how long did it take for that M1 system to come online? You remember that? All those years? Ridiculous. And they enjoy their life a little bit too much. They enjoy their lifestyle a little bit too much. So I really don't like the percentage of the budget. It's not sustainable, and then it puts you in a really bad position when you say that we should be spending all of this money on weapons of war and warcraft and stuff like that, but not helping people. Now, I understand if you're having a completely 100% philosophical conversation about the nature of government and the role of government, but that doesn't work on election day. Okay? And it just doesn't work on election day. So when you look at the CBO all the time, look, Obama did run our military into the ground. It was not equipped. It was not. That was not a combat-ready military anymore. Right. It just wasn't. But at the same time, I what Trump did, I guess I applaud him for revamping it. But then at the same time, you have to shift from that to like maintenance done and being a little bit more modest. The truth of the matter is, if we had a decreased role around the world, if Japan could have its own military, all right? I mean, Germany, I would never allow to have its own military again. I don't care how virtuous Angela Merkel pretends she is. There's a reason why they are banned from being allowed to build a military. Yeah, so but Japan, for instance, a very culture with a long and proud history of being warriors, they can do this on their own, buddy. They can be allies, but they can do it on their own. And by the way, could you imagine if we let Abe build up his own defense, how that would put a check on the Chinese? The Japanese and the Chinese hate each other and have hated each other for many, many, many years. If you are at all worried about the rise of China, then let's take our money back, please, from Japan and let them do their own damn thing. All right? And I know I'm rare there, but we can't protect Japan anymore. If you think that you're like, what I just said is putting our ally, hanging them out to dry, if you really think that, then you're unrealistic. The fact of the matter is, you're putting the defense of an ally, supposed ally, at peril, because we don't have the ability to defend these countries the way we once did. We just can't do it anymore, Don. And we don't have the money. What are we one day going to say? Sorry, can't cash that check. I mean, and how does that, where does that leave them? I'm with, look, Sunday's Easter Sunday. I'm with Jesus Christ. Don't keep giving the guy a fish. Teach him how to fish.
Amen.
And that's it.
And then he stops bothering you.
Yeah, and then he becomes the best gift you can give somebody, is self-sufficiency.
He'll teach somebody to fish.
You know? And that's it. Let them take care of themselves. That's where I'm at on that.
Yeah, and I'm kind of with the whole thing on the trade. I think Donald Trump laid out the playbook for that. I kind of agree with him on what his view was as far as America being the world's policeman. I mean, I think he's exactly right. And to your point about Japan, think what that would do with North Korea. I bet you they could quit lobbing rockets at them.
Absolutely. They'd be thinking twice if they had. And by the way, again, we're not talking about like the Dutch here, all right? Or like Belgium, you know? We're not talking about a country that has a history of wanting to stay out of everything and tuck tail and run. We're talking about a country that has thousands of years of history of warrior culture. Let them do what they do best and put them on your side. Amen. I mean, that's textbook realism right there. Let them do what they do best and let them run. Let them spread their wings, baby, and let them run. Let's see how confident Kim Jong-un is the next time he wants to conduct a rocket test over their island. Let them see how confident Xi Jinping is to keep developing those islands off their coast. I doubt he would be that confident. Honestly, I mean, this is a no-brainer, Don. I'm sorry. This is a no-brainer.
Let me just say something, because I said this earlier. This is why I say this country should be run like a business. For example, our defense spending should come from the profits we make off of selling this equipment to Saudi Arabia and the other. Japan would be a great customer of ours if they were, in that business. But it would be great if our defense spending came off of the profit of these great products we make, military products, and the money that we make off of selling those to these other countries. If that paid for our defense budget, just think what that would do for, lowering our deficits and our spending and all those kind of things. So that's what I mean. It's an America First thing, but it's also what I mean by running this country like a business.
That was a great idea, by the way. That's too common sense. That's too common sense for Washington, D.C.
Yeah, that's dead. It'll never happen.
That's dead on arrival. They're not capable of that. And it also would interject with their K Street thing. But that was a fantastic idea. That was a great thought. All right, go ahead, Laura. Hit it up.
Lady Bell would like to know, do you all think any of the 4 candidates running against Kinzinger? I can't.
Kinzinger.
Thank
Adam
you.
Kinzinger.
I know, but I want to say Kissinger. Have a chance of winning.
You want to start with that one, Don?
Boy, I don't know. I think number one, let me just say that it's a huge disappointment, because we got that seat in Illinois, liberal Illinois, and there was a lot of excitement about Kinzinger and getting in there. I don't know. I think he's kind of got a hold on that. I think people are going to stick with him, but I think it's also very likely that we just lose that seat because of the infighting. It's going to get nasty, and that's the kind of stuff I hate to see, but I get it, because the guys turned out to be pretty disappointing. But everybody's got to understand too, that's a very liberal part of the country. I think what ends up happening is I fear that we're going to lose that seat because of the infighting and the nastiness, and the media is going to be all over that. They're going to love it. They love it when we fight with each other. So
this is what, for those who are avid watchers and listeners, this is the nightmare scenario that I laid out for you, which is there has to be, and I said this and I brought up Adam Kinzinger's seat along with several others as examples to when we discuss the future of the Republican Party. There has to be a lot less, what is the word I'm looking for? On the right, there tends to be less willingness to work together for a better alternative. If like you have somebody like Adam Kinzinger and the party base basically agrees he has to go, he's betrayed them, and they want him out. Instead of being selfless enough to say, you know what, I think so-and-so may be the better candidate. So-and-so may be better funded. Because this is what I brought up with Adam. He's got a huge war chest. A huge war chest. With one candidate, the correct candidate, the one that is the better candidate with Donald Trump's support, they could take him out, and then he could pivot, or she could pivot, and they could win. But instead, what we're going to see now is multiple people line up to go after Adam Kinzinger. There's just going to be a whole lot of fighting because nobody's going to want to put the country and the future of the party before themselves. I hate to say it, but you don't see this on the left. Not as much. You just don't. You see this on the right. And the Republican establishment and the Democratic Party count on this. And you will see the insurgent candidates kill each other and then take the party with them. Because by the time Adam and the opponents are done, they'll be bloodied up. The money will be exhausted. Well, not Adams, but he'll have enough to compete anyway. But he'll be forced to move in different directions instead. And then, like Don said, it's possible that you can have a Georgia 5 scenario play out where it was a Republican plus 20-something seat, and it goes down because Republicans fought amongst themselves. I think there could have been and this is not the only race, unfortunately. We saw this play out in Michigan, and it may play out there again. I mean, it's sad. I mean, there comes a point where everyone keeps talking about why I'm going to run because I want to make service to the country. If you're not a viable candidate, and then you shouldn't be in there making problems. I'm just sorry. I mean, it's really that true. And then the Republican establishment has a great way of picking somebody and like making it look like they're an insurgent conservative or something. We've seen this happen many times, Don. And the point is to just split the vote. And if they win with that guy anyway or that girl anyway, then they win either way. I mean, it's hedging their bet. Claire McCaskill used to play games like this to hold on to her seat in Missouri. I mean, people have to understand this is really, it can be a chess game sometimes. It can't, you just have to make the right choice. You have to say, okay, this is the better candidate. And if you really want to mount a serious challenge, it has to be a one-on-one. And then, that's it. You have to move on. But unfortunately, that does not appear to be the case. I mean, it's still possible, Don, that one of them doesn't raise enough money and is forced out. That's possible, but we'll see. This is looking like a free-for-all. What happens is conservative activists, they smell blood in the water, and they got right, and they think, oh, it's Adams. He's going to be in trouble. He is in danger from a primary defeat. I want to be the one to jump in there, and they don't care who is and is not the better candidate, and it's sad. I've seen it too much over the years. I really have. And at the same time, you will not see that on the left. They will rally behind one progressive that they think is going to take out Nancy Pelosi's lieutenant. They will take that lieutenant out, and then they will go on to pretty much cruise to victory in the general because it was a Democratic district anyway. They didn't rock the boat that much. They just beat an establishment person. Hell, their people come out looking like they're for the little guy out of it. We took out our own lieutenant because, right? I mean, really, we saw that in New York. We saw it in Missouri, right? And with Bush. Right, so it's just incredible.
All right, 1.5 more questions to go.
1.5 more to go, okay.
Christina B. would like to know what about Kelly Shabaka? I probably butchered that poor woman's name.
Can I see it?
In Alaska. It's like
I can't. Oh, okay. I can't. We can't comment on that.
Okay.
I can't comment on that. Get another question, and I'm sorry. But what was the? I'm just curious though. What was the last part of it?
Oh, about Alaska?
Okay. What about it? And I imagine talk about that. Yeah. Well, I can't really. Yeah, we can't talk about that because I can't give. I just can't.
You
can't. I can't. I'm
you
sorry.
Can't do it.
You know, one of those things. I got those rules, guys, where I can't get involved because maybe there's like a discussion going on. I can't. Not just surrounding that person, but a particular, race in general. We can't discuss that. I'm sorry. You got another one, or you got a half of one?
I got another one and a half. Who got?
And tell them I owe them a question. All right.
Christina loves you. She knows.
I owe you a question, Christina. Okay. You just happen to pick the wrong one.
Interesting one. Who gets better numbers with Hispanics and blacks? Trump in 20 or W in 04? Do you think Rove knows that 202 was stolen?
Yeah, wow, Don, that's a really good question because for a long time, Rove and company have been lying about how much George W. Bush received with the Hispanic vote, okay? And he did not get, let me say this definitively, George W. Bush did not get 44% of the Hispanic vote in 2004. It is widely believed and accepted among my profession and what I do that the exit polls badly overstated his minority support and understated his white Democrat support, especially in areas in the Midwest. So when they tell you he won 16% of the black vote in Ohio, but only such and such of the white vote, 58%, right? They were wrong, and he likely won more like 13% of the black vote and 61% or something of the, so I'm just trying to give you an example. But he did do better. George W. Bush absolutely did do better among Hispanics than he did 4 years prior, and the same thing with blacks. The difference, and Dom, we talk about this all the time, the difference is the disproportionate Hispanics are represented strangely in the Electoral College. You have now in California a much more liberal Hispanic, which disproportionately impacts the overall exit poll number. When you have something like, I'll tell you what, in Florida, Don, Trump must have done better than George W. Bush in Florida. Exit polls be damned among Hispanics, because George W. Bush lost Miami-Dade by the exact margin Trump did. Trump almost carried it, but about 6 points. All right, that was the closest Miami-Dade had been at the presidential level since 2004, when he defeated Kerry by a pretty good margin. But Miami-Dade was much whiter in 2004 than it is now. So it goes without saying that not only did Trump do better than W did in Florida among Hispanics, he did much better. And I mean 20 points better among Cubans. Venezuelans were not really a factor in 2004, but I do not believe George W. Bush would have carried 70% of Venezuelans. I mean, these are insane numbers. And then you have the I-4 corridor, Don, but again, that was a lot whiter in 2004 than it is now. So maybe Bush did better among certain Puerto Rican subgroups. I mean, right? I mean, you're a Florida guy. You know what I'm saying. I mean, this is a very different looking state now. So, and then in Texas, he probably did well in 2004. But Trump carried Zapata County in Texas. So Bush's margin difference in Texas was the Anglo vote, what they call it, the white vote in Texas. They refer to as the Anglo vote. So in battleground states, I think it's without a doubt Trump did better. I mean, in most anyway, not all, but most, I would say. Nevada, Bush, he did better in Nevada in at least one anyway. But that was much whiter. Nevada is much more Hispanic than it was. So I don't know. What's your take on that? I think Florida, without a doubt. In Pennsylvania, I think Trump outperformed among blacks in Pennsylvania, George W. Bush in Ohio, same thing. I mean, Bush only won Ohio by 2 points, man.
Right.
Two.
Yeah, and I think the political landscape has changed a lot. First off, let
Yeah.
me just say this. I think it's one of the, and I know why we do it and we have to do it, but I think it's one of the most distasteful things about politics is the way we box everybody and we focus on, well,
Yeah.
who did better with this group and this group and this group. People are people. And I mean, my interactions with the Hispanic community, for example, I find them to be very, very conservative. They're family oriented, the religious views, the economic views. So I just hate that part of it, but I know why we have to do it, and I get it. But I think the landscape has changed so much. If you look at, I think a major thing, number one, Barack Obama really hurt liberals here and hurt the case for Hispanics voting for liberals here when he sat down with uh, Castro and he did the
Castro.
wave at a baseball game. And that was a
Yeah.
huge thing to the, especially the
Wet foot, dry
Cuban
foot.
American community. That was huge. They did not like that at all. And I think there's still an effect from that. But if you look at Venezuela, so you look at Venezuela and you look at what happened there, the collapse of the country and the socialism aspect of it. So now that we're all talking socialism coming from the left, I think that's had a major impact on the mindset of the Hispanic community. I think that's a big deal there. And I think as poorly as everything's been bungled with this, and this is hurting right now as we speak, I can see the numbers going down of support for the left coming from that community just by what's happening at the border, what they can see with their own eyes, because they're able to, with this issue, upset everybody. Those who came here legally, so I think the political landscape has really changed since 2004, and I think it's getting worse. I think it's going in the wrong direction for liberals, and I'm very happy about that because, again, I think typically the Hispanic community aligns more with conservative values, and I think they want to come out. So to that aspect, I put that on the media, the way the media narrates things. But now we have actual examples that people can say, yeah, but what about Venezuela? Yeah, but what about what's going on at the border now? Yeah, but what about so I think this trend, that's just my feeling, is going to continue to go further towards conservatism within the Hispanic community. I think President Trump did a pretty good job across the country with that.
Yeah, and also, I hate to say this, but most Hispanics don't like Black Lives Matter. And over the summer with the rioting, we saw this anger build up. We were supposed to, I think there was like a bit of a feeling of betrayal among some voters. There were absolutely older Hispanics, well, not older, I don't want to say older, but maybe, 45 and above, who voted for Barack Obama, and then some that voted for Hillary Clinton, especially in Florida and even in Nevada, remember, and Arizona. But in any event, these people felt like they were going to be part of that new emerging Democratic majority, and then kind of felt like abandoned and sidelined, for a larger African American turnout. I really think there is some kind of feeling of betrayal there. Like, some of these instances don't align. Some of these interests don't align with us. And how could you please us all? And you can't, right? And in doing so, they decided to really take a hard left turn, which I don't think some Hispanics that voted for Barack Obama were ever really on board with to begin with. I think they liked social safety nets. And I think that Barack Obama did better with the working class than exit polls showed. And that's why Mitt Romney was taken by surprise like that. And it just that was kind of under the surface, like what you're saying. There was some of this was really under the surface the entire time. And it really took that divide, under Trump to push it, to make it happen, And Arizona, by the way, the tightness in Arizona is not because Trump did worse among Hispanics, which he did not. I mean, it's 40% at Pima County, even parts of Maricopa. There is a professional class of whites that is changing, and then even new arrivals from different Asian areas. Washoe County, Nevada, perfect example. There are these arrivals that aren't like, they are not what the suburbs look like when George W. Bush carried every fastest growing excerpt in the country in 2004. And by the way, he did so and still only won Ohio by 2 points. So again, it's not enough to increase your share of the white vote to create margins like that. You have to do better with damn near across the board. And by the way, we know that geographically, right? So we know that geographically speaking. Franklin, in the suburbs in Franklin County were much more pro-Bush than they were pro-Trump. And yet Trump still did better. Those are white voters. Those are not black voters in northwestern and northeastern Ohio. Same thing with Philadelphia. Even the New York Times poll, which got it completely wrong in Pennsylvania, even they found what we found with black voters in Pennsylvania. They were even higher than us. We were 16 or 18%? They were 22% for Donald Trump. So when you look at the white suburbs in southeastern Philadelphia, the white suburbs created that support for Joe Biden. And there were no doubt the shy Trump voter indicators we were always measuring. The shyest Trump voter were African Americans and white suburban women. In Michigan, another place where he was doing better with African Americans than Romney did in Michigan, but he was doing notably better this time than he did in 2016. So the exit polls are, you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, Don, but exit polls are junk, and they were junk this year again. They were really bad. I mean, they weren't even close. Guys, Florida was competitive. Florida looked like a Biden +1 in those exit polls. I hate to tell everybody. Everybody in media was thinking, oh, it's like Florida's going to Biden by 1 point. It's too close to call, but Biden's probably going to eke it out. They started screaming about the surge in Broward County. Remember? I mean, there's Biden takes a big lead. I'm like, this lead is gone. That when the rest of the vote comes in, Florida's over. For those of you who watched our election coverage, it was over. It was over early. And you can't do that on the back of white voters alone. You can't. It's not mathematically possible. And by the way, Pinellas County, that's a white county. Let's just face a lot of working class whites from the Northeast move to Pinellas County. That was Obama territory in 08 and in 12. Trump flipped it. He flipped it by a little bit, won it by a little bit. And then that was supposed to be a big Biden turn. And it wasn't. 500,000 votes. They were separated by less than 400 votes or something like that. So Trump did not really even lose it. I mean, you can't claim it with 500,000 votes, Don. You can't claim to carry or lose a county when it's separated by a few hundred votes. I mean, that's a split. All right. And if Pinellas County was a split and Trump still more than doubled his margin in Florida, he did it on southern Florida votes, which are brown. Those are black and brown votes. You cannot do that with white votes. So there comes a point where I don't totally dismiss exit polls, but you cannot, like Karl Rove, to her question, he constantly does that. You cannot use them to negate the reality of the results, because after a while the results come in, we look at the results and we know how people must have voted. And we know that the exit polls do not reflect that accurately. So, again, it looked like a rout in North Carolina too, by the way. North Carolina was another one that looked like Biden was going to carry if you looked at the exit polls. And it was difficult to do it this year, Don. You had all that mail-in voting, right? So what does it matter when when you don't have that large of a population even voting on election day? In some of these states, it was almost nil. 10 to 15% was election day vote. Arizona's a perfect example. And then Fox and the AP with their voter analysis, which is an attempt to steal my methodology. I mean, really, they smeared me in 2016 for using that methodology. That was the methodology. But they're using the AmeriSpeaks panel, which I'm not saying anything about. I'm simply saying that it's clearly too liberal. Clearly, that panel is too liberal. And if the pollster can't recognize that when they get the raw data and say, okay, what do I have to do to make this accurate, to represent the electorate, which they clearly cannot, then it's worthless. It's not going to help you. It's just not going to help you. That's why veteran exit pollsters quit, Don. There's like not any, the Murrays, they're gone. They won't do it anymore because a lot of them, the good ones anyway, after 2004, basically declared that this was a dead industry because, Democrats were using what they knew to be flawed data as reasons to justify that George Bush must have stolen Ohio because it wasn't mathematically possible. Meanwhile, the exit pollsters themselves are saying, no, we were just wrong. Looking at the county results, we were just wrong. So it comes a point where it's, I don't know, Don. I think exit polls have gotten to the point of being immoral now. I do. I think it's immoral, and I think that it does a disservice to the country. You should just let the results come in, especially that first wave, Don. You still have California voting and the rest of the country voting. You have like the whole time zone still voting. Panhandle. How many times have they tried to screw over the Panhandle in Florida? You know, you're a Florida guy. You know, you've been at this thing a long time. It used to be seemingly every year that the media would try to say Florida was gone when there was still net margins in places like Bay County, 30, 40,000 in one county. They have been doing this for years. At some point, it just becomes immoral. You know, it's suppression.
Yeah. And they're doing that now with Texas. Every election now we're hearing, oh, Texas is going to flip this time. And so, yeah, they're doing the same thing that they were doing back then with Florida, which they still do with Florida, but they're doing that now primarily focused on Texas. That's
absolutely true. Texas is big. It's big. You got a lot of, people out west. And it really is shocking you even see a result like you see in Zapata, where if you were in Zapata County an hour or so before the poll closed, you might have heard Texas is probably unwinnable. So, what's the point of even going out and voting in Zapata County at this point, right?
Yep.
So, last thing we go before we go, Don, before I say, let people know about the show and where to hear you, I wanted to bring up.
People want to know when karaoke night is coming.
People want to know when karaoke night is coming. Maybe we'll do an event or something where everybody will have to sing. All right, we'll talk politics for a little bit. Maybe I'll give a little speech or something, and then I'll do it first, break the ice. All right, and then everybody can start doing karaoke. That sounds like fun, actually. Don's going, no. Everyone but Don will have to sing, okay, or at least a whole bunch of you. But I did want to say this before we left on the issue of the California recount. I pointed this out on Twitter, and I want to point this out on the show again. The gaslighting with signature verification is killing me. All right, so I went back just to show everybody. There were about 1.6, let me get the correct numbers. Give me 2 seconds. In California, they're going to use signature verification to try to DQ a lot of these signatures. All right. As always, there are different standards for Republicans and Democrats, as there are, of course, always. All right. Now, in 2003, when there was the recall of Governor Gray Davis in California, which I will repeat, the polls did not conclude Democrats were going to lose. All right. They were split. The public was always split. In truth, they were not, and Democrats got creamed. All right, so remember that when you see recount polls or recall polls in California. Rescue California, the group behind the recall of Governor Gray Davis, gathered about 1.6 million signatures to recall him in 2003. They only needed just under 900,000, 897,156. That was based on the prior election cycle, all right, because that's the law, a certain percentage of the electorate from the prior cycle, all right? They certified 1,356,408. That's a rejection rate of 15%. 15%. So remember when Jocelyn Benson, the Secretary of State in Michigan, even though I gave you Michigan's historic rejection rates, was saying that our claims were not factual and that it was a perfectly acceptable 0.14 rejection rate or 14,000 ballots. That's it. That's all. That's how full of crap these people are. Fulton County 4 years ago rejected a similar 14% of their needed vote by mail signature verification signature matches. They rejected 14%. Gwinnett County 15% or 14.6. And then even in a midterm, Gwinnett County still rejected 7%. And I believe I think Gwinnett, just to correct the record on that, that was 14.6. All right. That is very typical for Democrats. These signatures, we got to make sure if they match. We can't have a recall now unjustly. All right, let's make sure the signatures match. They deemed 15% of those puppies didn't match, Don. 15%. And you have all these people on Twitter gaslighting everybody about how common it is to have these incredibly low rejection rates. That's a farce. That is a load of crap. And now you know why the recall effort this year is attempting to gather plenty more, far more than they need, because they will absolutely reject as many as possible, and nobody will call it suppression. All right. So with that, Don, where can people find you, and what do we got going on tomorrow?
Well, tomorrow we're at DonSmithShow.com. And we're every Saturday, noon to 2 p.m. Eastern time. We had a problem last week and that's one of the reasons we're pushing forward on getting video going here. And I appreciate all you guys' help. It's been great. We've been playing with it all week, and we're about ready to go. So this might be our last Blog Talk show, but you can get the link at DonSmithShow.com. So last week we had last minute problems. Had Gordon Chang, who was nice enough he actually bumped another interview to be on, and then we couldn't have him on. So, I think I got about one sentence out and I got booted out of my own show and couldn't get back. So we've got Gordon Chang on. A lot of stuff going on in China. He's the best guy to talk to. Obviously, very knowledgeable on that. So we're gonna talk with him. We'll have you, of course, on, go over the economic numbers a little bit like we did here today, but maybe more, even a little more. So we've got a lot of stuff to talk about. There's so much going on right now, and so much that this is the time when I think it's really important. What the kind of stuff that we're doing is, you're not going to hear this stuff on the mainstream media. They just completely ignore it. Media is dangerous for what they report, but they're even more dangerous for what they don't report. So a lot of stuff to talk about on the show. Gordon Chang, Richard Barris, and should be a great show. So hope to see everybody at noon tomorrow. Again, go to DonSmithShow.com, and you can get the link there.
That sounds good. That sounds great. And where can they find you on Twitter?
I am at Don Smith Show 2. And then I'm Don Smith Show on Facebook as well.
All right. Well, with that, my friend, thanks for joining us again. We'll see you next Friday, hopefully, right? And
absolutely.
We'll definitely see you noon Eastern Standard Time tomorrow. I'll tweet it out as always. Keep an eye out for it, but you can go to it, DonSmithShow.com, which is probably what you should do anyway, because, right, the Blog Talk, that may be your last episode. So just get used to going to DonSmithShow.com.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? Yeah, we're hoping, if not, maybe one more Blog Talk show, but this could be the last one. If I'm feeling pretty comfortable with everything on the video side of it. So looking forward to doing that.
That's very cool. It's a great program. That is a great program. I'm just, I'm a Mac guy. And, I wish I could have been a bigger help. I mean, you're welcome, but I wish I could have been a bigger help. But I'm just not very good on Windows, and I don't know what it is. Once you go Mac, and Laura for a long time, we have to use it for polling software. All right, so on-premise polling software, the person who develops polling software that's on-premise for a Mac, Don, is going to be loaded. And I've thought about it. It's just how many projects can you possibly take on? Right. Yeah. And they all work on Windows, but that's about my extent to modern Windows these days. That's really, it's crazy, I know, but so that would be really cool. That's a great program you got, and I'm really looking forward to it. All right. So
absolutely.
With that, thanks for joining us as always, my friend. I'll let you run here, and we'll talk to you at noon tomorrow.
Sounds good.
Hi.
Yes.
All right. Thanks, Laura.
Thanks,
Rich.
We said hello.
All right. Bye-bye now.
All right. Bye-bye. All right, folks, that was Don Smith. Don't miss his show tomorrow at noon Eastern Standard Time. All right? And, of course, I'm going to take us out here. We're going to have some results on what are the odds on Monday. Okay? 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Robert and I will crunch over some numbers. It will be a very interesting show. But, don't miss Don's show tomorrow. And we'll go over some economic stuff more in detail. I have a lot I want to get out there. I just couldn't fit it in this show. But you can always follow me still on Twitter at peoples_pundit for now. And, of course, you can catch me on Gitmo Life at People's Pundit. And if you like the show on YouTube. And don't forget, hit that nice little thumbs up. If you don't like it, then dislike it. I say that every show, and I looked last show, and there was one dislike. out of all those likes. I was shocked.
Each is their own.
Well, I was shocked when how many fun people who have nothing else to do with their time we have.
Hey,
all right.
one day we may change minds.
You know, one day. Hey, that's the point, right? Well, not the point is to push the
Threshold.
no, to make people think for themselves.
Yeah, push the threshold. Make them independent thinkers.
That's right.
Blowing. And also,
What else are you gonna say?
we would like to tell you all have a very, very blessed
Oh, I'm getting
Easter.
there. I was getting there. Go ahead. Yes, go ahead though. You do it. You do it.
They hear you better.
Oh,
than
okay.
me.
But I'll do that in a second. As soon as we're and also, of course, if you like the chat, if you like the show, if you like What Are the Odds, don't forget to like or subscribe to the page, this YouTube channel, People's Pundit Daily, which will be getting a little bit of a revamp. So don't think you're looking at the wrong thing. All right. And of course, if you're looking on Facebook Live, then like the page People's Pundit Daily on Facebook. We'd greatly appreciate it. All right. Hit that notification bell on Twitter. That will let you know when we're going to go live. And yes, to everybody, listeners, viewers, supporters, all of you, we would very much like to wish you a very happy Easter. Easter is one of our favorite holidays. It is probably spiritually my favorite holiday, although everyone loves Christmas and Christmas is more fun. The resurrection is where it's at if you're a Christian, right? So we want you guys to know from the bottom of our hearts, thank you, and we hope you enjoy the holiday. See you tomorrow. See you on Monday. See you every day after that. All the best, folks. All the best.
Bye.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love, because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
We can get on a plane and take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for a night, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a